McLaren's philosophy of having two number one drivers seems to be a very controversial one when it comes to the Drivers' Championship, and despite Brown saying that he's happy to have two number one drivers on his team, Christian Horner doesn't believe in this scenario. The 50-year-old Brit has shared his thoughts about the McLaren situation with its drivers, and it looks like it's a repercussion move for what Brown said about the toxic environment that the Austrian team operates in. Be that as it may, is Horner's statement backed by a valid argument, and if so, how can McLaren change this in the foreseeable future? It's safe to say that one of the biggest mysteries in McLaren right now is the behaviour they have with their drivers, because while they're allowed to race fair and clean, Norris is closer to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, and with 7 races remaining, it will be obvious to push for him to have the better results compared to his teammate in order to catch up with the 3-time world champion. However, in Monza, Piastri was on the hunt for the win, and when he realised that it wasn't possible, he didn't switch positions with Norris in order to help him gain 3 more points, and we all know what happened in Hungary when Norris was forced to abort his race win just to make up for McLaren's botched strategy. So as of now, Norris has the team to blame for about 10 points lost to his name, but the situation being viewed from Zak Brown remains the same. There are 2 number one drivers in the team, and they will operate as decided by the team in a race-to-race manner. Christian Horner, however, doesn't believe in this, and he feels like the number one driver in the team is still Lando Norris, based on the amount of money that the team is paying him right now. Of course, this is very likely to change when Piastri's contract will be up for renewal, but nevertheless, the current situation is that Norris receives about 5 times the salary of Piastri. And when talking about this, as well as the championship fight between Norris and Verstappen, Horner said, "Usually the prioritising of the drivers is dealt with behind closed doors, so I am not actually sure what the papaya rules are. There still seems to be some confusion in them. Every team is different. Our rules of engagement are very clear on what the focus is until the end of the year. We've got a driver that's fighting for the World Championship. It's a team sport, so it's very clear that Checo's job is to support Max until the end of the year." Easier said than done when your number 2 driver hasn't scored a podium since Suzuka and is one of the most underperforming drivers on the grid while having such a stable car in his hands. While Max was able to win races in Spain and Imola, Perez was nowhere to be found to help the team in the Constructors' Championship in a solid manner, as we only saw flashes of competitiveness in Baku, a circuit that he transforms into a beast every time the F1 caravan visits. Nevertheless, Horner continued to elaborate on the situation in McLaren, as he feels like the biggest asset in the team is Lando Norris. He said, "Different teams operate in different ways. When you've got an asset like Max Verstappen, you don't make him a number 2 driver. Lando Norris, they are paying 5 times what they are paying Oscar, so I would assume he would be their number 1 driver or their biggest asset. So therefore the confusion comes when you are not up front from the beginning of what your plans are." This isn't an issue that Red Bull has never come across either, such as the 2014 season when Ricciardo was clearly meant to be the number 2 driver next to Vettel, but he went on to win 3 races that season, as Horner admitted that this opened up a question that he didn't think would be opened up so early in their shared venture in 2014. Nevertheless, the Brit believes that the competitiveness of Piastri, similar to the one that Ricciardo has shown when he debuted back in Red Bull, is what's causing all of the problems for McLaren. As he continued, "I think the other one is causing them headaches because Piastri is winning races and he is doing a very good job. It was like when Daniel Ricciardo came to us in 2014. He was clearly meant to be the number 2 to Vettel, and he won 3 races that year to Sebastian's none. Sometimes it causes you a headache like that. For sure, they took Oscar with the expectation, as Mercedes did with Russell and Ferrari did with Sainz, that you've got a prime asset and a support asset, and when the second driver starts outperforming the first driver, that is when you tend to have a headache." And McLaren did bring some confusing decisions like the one in Hungary, where the team was seemingly not aware that they were in the fight in the Drivers' Championship as well, stripping Norris from his second career win as he had to slow down and let Piastri go. At that time, the goal was more towards the Constructors' Championship, and it was only during the summer break that the team made a decision that they would prioritise Norris for the remainder of the season if the circumstances allowed that. Even regarding this question, both Andrea Stella and Zak Brown had different opinions as to what should be done, as the team principal said that Norris will receive the help of Oscar whenever that is possible, while Brown said that this is a situation that will be decided on the race itself, as he compared Oscar and Norris to Prost and Senna. Talking about his squad, Brown said, "Number one priority is to win both championships. I know that's two priorities, but they're both young drivers who want to win. We've always believed in having two number ones. That's always been McLaren's way. It can be very difficult to manage. You know what it was like with Lewis, and we've seen it with Senna and Prost." While initially saying that the priority will remain on Norris because he is closer to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, what we can't forget is that Piastri is just 32 points behind his teammate in the table, and the team also has Leclerc in between them that they have to worry about. A situation like the one in Monza is what the team wants to avoid, because ultimately the move in turn 4 allowed Leclerc to be P2 and then to plan the one-stop strategy with the ultimate prize going to his hands, the race win. McLaren would have to work on their strategy a lot more than what they did to this point, because it's obvious that the field is very much converged right now, and every small mistake can cost you up to 5 places on the grid. When talking about having two number one drivers in the team, Stella said, "I think I've said already that we have two number one drivers. Having two number one drivers means that we approach things first of all in the interest of the team. The interest of the team is to win the Constructors' Championship, and yes, it's to win also the Drivers' Championship. Lando was in the most favourable position before Baku. I think he still is in the most favourable position, so more naturally we would have supported Lando. But I think we have evidence that actually, interestingly, it was Lando supporting Oscar and enabling his victory thanks to driving for the team and driving to support his teammate. So I think that remains our approach. We always intended to review after every event with each driver, with the drivers together, what was going to be the best approach for the next races. We will do it again and set the plan for Singapore." Again, this does leave a bit of confusion because the team still hasn't clarified what will happen if Piastri is in the lead and Norris is behind him, and whether or not a scenario like in Hungary will be repeated but in the reverse order. This track is very similar to Hungarian, where the MCL 38 scored a 1-2 finish and was quite brilliant throughout the entire weekend, so they should be the favourites to beat here, along with Ferrari, as Red Bull will likely continue with their struggles, even though the Austrian team is adamant that they've extracted enough potential out of the new floor they introduced in Baku. Be that as it may, Piastri has said it loud and clear that while he has agreed to help his teammate in the Drivers' Championship, something that might be painful for him depending on the circumstances, it's not set in stone that he has to do it every time that he is ahead of Norris. A classic example is the Baku GP, where an unfortunate event saw Norris finish all the way back in P17, only for him to be promoted to P15 and climb to P6 on the race, effectively finishing P4 after the late crash between Sainz and Perez. This has also shown the team that Piastri can be both offensive and defensive when it matters the most, so McLaren will definitely have a lot on their plate in the upcoming period. With all this in mind, what do you think about Horner's statement about the status of Norris in the team? And more importantly, do you think that the salary does play a role like the Brit suggested? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.